Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is, what do you do if you are finding yourself in a situation where there is a psychopath caring for the elderly? Very serious question that we received in, and something I can take up and have taken up before and want to take up as well, because this becomes a very precarious and flammable situation very quickly if you're not careful. The elderly, the vulnerable, the naive, the handicapped, the simpleton, the simple people, the people who, would never, who always expect the best in others. Those are the people who are a psychopath will target and groom. What does it mean to target and groom? Meaning get their job, meaning get their marriage, meaning get their best friend's wife, get their best friend's wife's sister, get all three of them if that is required. Whatever, I mean, things that would just boggle the mind, to which could be completely deranged. Someone who is a psychopath has an ability to behave in such really high risk taking behaviors, as such as taking advantage of breaking the law, taking for granted those vulnerable populations who cannot stand up, speak, see for themselves. In other words, they cannot care for themselves. They're bedridden. They have oxygen tanks. They require medication. They require walkers, wheelchairs, special bedding, special garments, special handling, special speaking, and special said routines. And knowing this to be the case, there's a frailty and a fragility, however, that you can care for if you are educated and know how to do as properly. However, it is the almost in your face, glaring blasphemous, well, like what you would consider just completely going against what would be a warm-blooded human being. In other words, it's a cold-blooded maneuver. Their wheelchair is a little bit too tipped. They're grabbing their arm, their frail shoulder a little bit too hard. They're using or selling their medication. They're mixing up their medication doses, not giving them at a timely basis, saying things and assigning responsibility where that person is not have the ability, meaning they're bedridden and they're supposed to ring a bell to get these medications from the cabinet. In other words, they set them up for things they cannot do. And that person, of course, who's elderly is going, okay, yeah, I will do it, because they don't want to stir a fight or cause a problem. They have dementia. Their thoughts are not thinking clearly. They are missing a couple loops or syllables, and these are very open and glaring weaknesses that are almost subject to, you hear the horror stories of people perhaps at nursing homes and people stealing their jewelry, causing them to peril, causing them to sign over will accounts, misinforming the family. I mean, just things that are an abomination, I think, that would just rock your complete skull. I can't think of another word, where it really agitates you, it agitates you to the point where you can't get control in the very beginning, which means it has such control over you that you're in a state of disbelief, almost shock. And then and then the apparent just um, disbelief, and then the projected said disbelief onto you, as if you're unbelievable. You're trying to say in question, and they're just they have no conscience. What is a female psychopath? Really, it is someone who will it thrives really on high risk behaviors. They have a propensity to boredom, i.e., they do not just sit and be. That is a non-inhabited experience for they do not. A female psychopath always has their motor running. They do not like to be bored. They get very agitated when there is something not going sort of for them, meaning it's beyond selfishness. It's pathological, sort of over several degrees. Um, you know, Cement block, but this person might have you know, a smile on, or a smock on, or something, but yet they have a propensity to boredom, which causes them to lash out in very I don't want to say lethal ways, but I want to say to the point where it's to a degree that it feels blood curdling, life threatening. Like, I know I can crush you if I wanted to, sort of banter, okay? I could, I could crush. I think that's really the female psychopath, which is really scary, okay? If you heard that from a man, well, that could get them in big trouble. So men know kind of not to do certain things. I mean, they learn how to, do it, but women aren't really perceived to be capable of such until they expose themselves or someone exposes them. It's very, very terrible to be the only one who has exposed this individual, and kind of feeling like you've been exposed to just like a molten lava that's very dark, and scary, and could really be capable of ending or terminating life of things, including animals, plants, beings, situations, businesses, reputations, just and they will maybe express it in a variety of ways or tensions, meaning like the cat and mouse, they'll keep you hurt just enough to keep you coming back for more, to check in, just to make sure you still have a key to the kingdom, or you're still sort of in that heavy intoxication of toxic mind control, which is what the psychopath is that the psychopath has a mind control. And this sounds like really far out, maybe to people who have never encountered, and who have never experienced. They don't understand the degree, severity, twist, sort of planting of evil seeds, or twisting of meaning that takes advantage of others, meaning it causes them to see things in a different way, or inhabit or experience another meaning, which precludes the benefit of the other, but is more required to get the individual under their control. So isn't that interesting? Isn't that seductive? Isn't that erotic? Isn't that arousing? Always sort of arousing, seducing, interesting, bringing in, ooh, ah. It's sort of this perfumous, just sort of like cloud that seems alluring, but at the same time, they've got like, steel claws that are ready to grip your legs and go, oh, did you just fall over something? They're ready to topple over, and people don't the thing is, what I feel that they do is that there's certain levels where they really cross the line, okay? And they kind of test people out. In other words, they'll hit someone, maybe like the elderly, or miss their medication and go in front of you. Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if we gave them all this and they went crazy for a night? Like, they literally think that that would be entertaining. When someone could have a meltdown, they're considering this to be, let's do this. I mean, this is entertain. This is boredom. Okay, this is sadistic, sick, pathological. Okay, these are in people who have prominent positions, in offices, in buildings, in studios, in Hollywood, in the financial districts. I mean, there's certain, you're going to get a whole bunch of them in particularly those areas. But talking about like the elderly, when they find something that they can manipulate, in other words, they're looking for jobs where they'll get access to, oh wow, look at this, we all of a sudden have access to all these passports. And then, like, they find a way to do some, or they find themselves in jobs where they can easily have checks like written, they convince this person to give them something or money, or put them in their will, and start crazy making and the gaslighting them. And especially, saying so and so is lazy, aren't you disappointed, talking bad down about someone when they're not there. So feeding them all these, you better be careful, usually in a way that, like, we're trying to keep you, but it's usually ways that are trying to be damaging of another reputation, and make you doubt your own reality, or have to defend and justify the fact that you are who you are, or you're doing what you can, because they're going to try to perceive you then differently and then throw everybody off the wagon. And people, it's very, it's very maniacal, like an emotional octopus putting their tentacles in. You feel like there's nothing you can do to stop it. The YouTube algorithms, what they do, what they put up there, everything that's very heightened, arousing, gets people angry. That's what gets the ratings, what gets people mellow, centered, and productive and on the right track. You're not going to get these viral videos about, look how this was helped, or this was turned around, or this. You're going to get the viral videos about something that's like usually super heightened, arousing, and forget about it with the shorts. Don't get stuck on those. It's going to just start short-circuiting your brain to think you should only look places in 6 seconds, and it's just like a new drug that you don't know that you're being administered. Same thing with a psychopath. It's like they're getting you to doubt your reality and sort of prescribe it as your only option. In other words, you're going to have to accept all this wrong despite it all. In other words, they're causing you to be corrupt or corrupt your own standards and forget about your boundaries, which means you honor your own voice and what you're seeing as reality. So, for example, the psychopath, the female psychopath, if they, it's a terrible feeling, they'll test people. In other words, in the office, whatever, just doing things you're not supposed to do, okay? Or if you're caring for the elderly, things you're obviously not supposed to do. Leave them like out in the cold. Mess with their medication. Mess with their diet. Doctor goes, hey, it's very important that you don't eat processed foods. And then their caregiver is giving them saltines. You're supposed to be on a low salt, no processed food diet. And then their caregiver is giving them said foods, and that are going to not be able to be processed by an elderly digestive system. Caregivers who kind of, and then test that, oh, why did you give them that almost choked them, or why did you give them, their system can't handle it, that is too cold, that is too hot, they need this medication, why did there's always, they know the hot rails to poke you with, they know the buttons, like, they know to kind of sneak, like they'll just sort of walk by you with, their medication, or they'll slam a door, all these sort of subtle but not so subtle. You get into then this sort of ultra reality of communicating where it's according to their flipped way of meaning, which is usually designed to be seductive, illegal, just something that gets you sort of strung in like a light, like a Christmas light. You're just sort of in the fishhook. You're sort of in the pack, and you feel that your wire is just sort of all the way through you, and you can't disconnect and deal with it. The psychopath creates a zone. I mean, talk about the energy of a female psychopath, okay? We'll talk about this. The energy, when they really push it out, which means whatever it is that they do, if they're trying to exert a certain type of energy, they are able to exert a body language, but more like a body vibe that sort of gets people's attention with, they're able to sort of shape people's behavior, shape the behavior of a room. This sounds like strange talk, where it seems like they're able to make people do things that they normally wouldn't want to do, or perceive things as different than they are. This all of a sudden becomes a fox, and then the fox is foxy woman, it just becomes all these delusional sort of alternative reality meanings. And we've done this, before. They create, and our other video viewers have likened it to sort of like a cult. And I think that's very apt description, where it kind of gets a mind control over people, where just sort of they would do things and then be controlled, which means go and even do things that they normally would not do. Start smoking. Like literally they're forced, they would never drive at this time, then they start driving. They would never eat, they're almost pushed out of the room, like they can't even resist the energy. There's this mind control manipulation of a psychopath. A psychopath, the way that their brain is, the different elements are different shaped, have different activity than a normal person. It gives them a propensity, a precludence, and a predisposition to engage in high risk behavior. Lack of consciousness, meaning no fear. They do not experience they don't have a conscience, like this is right, this is wrong. In other words, they don't have any sort of emotional seatbelt holding them back. They're like, they literally just within their mindset, which is very vastly different than a normal, and forget about a caregiver, I mean, the caregiver, and to understand that the caregiver, how do you deal? Because they're going to want to, quote unquote, have their ways. I mean, they're already sort of grooming people to behave according to a very, and it can be very sick, signing over of finances, inappropriate behavior, having them in inappropriate clothing. I mean, doing things that you would just never even imagine that the caregiver does. And it's crazy making to other people around. It's like you want to call the police. Get professionals involved. Don't be drawn into the crazy making, because they'll get you into sort of the other side of, you're in the witness protection program, and then you're in the protector. Now you're trying to protect people. Now you're trying to rescue. Now you're diving in the frozen river, and you're wearing, a beach towel. I mean, you're losing perspective. They will do this to you, and it's very difficult to explain this sort of takeover. It sounds very serious, but it is very serious. It is very serious, and it has grave outcomes, and it's very difficult to witness. But don't consume too much, okay? Because once you've seen enough, you know that you know. And then, but sometimes you forget that you know. So then when you're dealing with a caregiver, you must think clearly without sort of clearly knowing what you know about them. So you know the severity, you know what they've done, you know how they have convinced other professionals of things. In other words, they're getting away. I mean, I just don't even want to say, but it gets you into then wanting to, I've had viewers who say that they want to set the record straight. They want to set the law straight. They want to turn them in. They want to do all this. Well, you've got to be careful, and you do have to pick your battles. Okay? Some battles you don't need one or are required to take up. But some battles, where you feel a moral obligation, where you're cut from a different cloth. A female psychopath, they don't have warmth. They don't have affection. And a lot of people think that woman equals warmth and affection, or caregiver equals warmth and affection. They wouldn't get the job. They wouldn't be in this field. They couldn't do it. But it's kind of like, there's, like I heard someone say, there's a lot of sick people in this world. But you have to realize and recognize the signs, when they violate certain boundaries, laws, medication dispensing, things that can affect chemistry, life outcome, emergency, taking food, stealing from the elderly, and the person you would not expect, because they are stealthy. The psychopath, they don't have, so a female psychopath, they don't have, they'll be putting on their moves. It doesn't matter if they're going to a wedding, a funeral, a ballroom, a basement. They will do whatever is required to usually seduce, act larger than, more correct. But there's a really sort of seething mind control. There's an energy. And people say, oh, that sounds so esoteric. Is that true? There is a physical energy where they can make it very difficult just to even like walk in the room. It sounds strange. They will sort of shape-shift and metamorphosize the way things appear or are. Just things just seem to sort of take this very delusional, it's just like a surreal situation. And when a caregiver is that type of individual, which means they're just trying to set themselves up for some sort of mother load, that they're thinking and going to make sure that they're entitled to a better than their fair share of, or all of everything. In other words, like, let's say there's several people, and there's this caregiver, and then you've got this people who come in the house. They might make it very difficult or make it very stressful for other people, to the point where they're very unhappy in their own family, very unhappy in their own house. They can't get the caregiver out of there. They find themselves then either married or have a contract, or there's some other thing, where you must expose them. You don't know what to do, especially when there's, violations. You must get professionals involved. You must realize that you are, a protector. You have a, like when I was working in social services, you kind of have a sworn witness protection. In other words, if you see something happening, say something. And this can be very traumatic. You don't want to bring attention to things. You're saying, uh-oh, this could be trouble, but it could be more trouble for me now, or they'll threaten you. You're really going to cause trouble. Look, and they'll put everything on you as if, you've done, and if you really understand, you haven't. But it's the sort of trying to convince people of things other than are not the truth, which they do all the time. You're wondering how people could simultaneously live in a double life, a double skin, a triple shoe. They metamorphosize, literally, figuratively. I would say, on a range of the human that is abnormal. Okay, meaning the musculature in their face can change drastically. I mean, we're talking from 100 degrees, Fahrenheit to sub-zero. Like from, I don't want to say Mother Teresa, but, Mother Mary to some vindictive, non-existent, cold, vacuous, So there's a lot, there's a certain energy that they possess, and more so on that control, but you don't have to be corrupted. So when you get to that clarity, and it might take repeating to yourself, I am clear, I am clear, I am clear, and really reaffirming yourself, and the self-talk and the self-decisiveness has to get really, really clear, and document things. Don't become obsessive, don't be, but it can create a lot of paranoia. And if you're in the same area, it's going to make it very difficult. This person is going to be like a needle, and just really cause a lot of unnecessary tension around. So and then why is it then that this is allowed? What can be done? Because this, I don't know all the details, but obviously, you have to contact a doctor, a primary care doctor. There are people who will listen. Other hotlines, senior financial abuse is, look into what that is. Coercing, or, other tampering with things. Not that you have to go and, make a whole life of it, but if you see something, say something. And you don't have to then work on, the person who is receiving the care. You have to work on the environment then at large, and just sort of secure it. Just sort of realize then where the sort of tampering or hacking into the harm, the stability, or sort of getting to normal, especially for an older person. They do not need any drama. It is not fair to implicate others in that. I mean, their health, their time. So enough said. Just make sure that you don't err on the side of wrong, and just feel helpless. There's nothing I can do. There must be something, and if you want to put more details. But from people who I've spoken to, other clients I've worked with, those are generally the areas. And it's sort of the unrealistic cut downs, this sort of sneering, like they don't want you there. You are not wanted. Just let them ruin their day with, trying to throw that mudsling. Just don't ruin your day. Does your day, you have to ask yourself, does my day truly have to be ruined? And if you say yes, then you might look at changing, or if you're in that family, you might really look at just getting some professional help. And it should be relatively easy to take care of the seniors because there's so many good laws protecting them. Just make sure you've got those, and don't fear that it's going to look like you're overreacting or overstepping your boundaries. If you document things, that's really what's important. So when people are gaslighted or they've been so heavily criticized, chronically doubted, sometimes they can't even believe what they're seeing. Like, I just can't, or even to, they're talking about the elderly. How about to an infant? Mistreating an infant, a toddler, a child, in ways that a child is not equipped to deal with, giving them responsibilities, or putting them in perilous situations, or violating their personal space or private areas. That's really severe. Okay, so when you've seen that, you know who the psychopaths are. If you've seen it and you know it, you need to write a note. Sometimes you need to remind yourself and remember that you remember. Once you've made in your clarity what you've seen, and you know that they try to trigger and manipulate in maniacal ways. So despite the caregiver, be very careful. Get them out. Talk about write things down. Document times, dates, what you saw. I don't want to say take pictures. I can't offer any tax or legal advice, and I'm not here to diagnose or treat anything. But there are a lot of professionals, out there who you can talk to. I hope you get in touch. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day.